Hey everyone, welcome back to another series of how to flip cars and actually turn a profit. If you guys are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button to support the channel and also keep up with all the latest content. In this video, I picked up a 2015 Audi S4 from the auction blind. When I say blind, that means I went off of pictures because the car was actually located in another state, so I wasn't able to go to the yard to look at it. So I had to study the photos and kind of gauge how much everything will cost me to fix this car and actually turn a profit. This is actually the second Audi S4 that I flipped this year. The first one I profited around $6,000. So I'm going to show you guys in this one how much everything costed me towards the end, and then also how much profit I actually made. And I'm going to show you guys the whole process on how to rebuild cars that you get from the auction. On this one, I did find some hidden damage that wasn't disclosed by the auction and should have definitely been disclosed. I understand if there was like a dent or something I didn't see in the pictures, which would be my fault, but what I actually found on this car should have definitely been disclosed, and I'll get into that in the video and show you guys what I'm actually dealing with that. But in the end, we still were profitable. I made it work, but like I said, the damage that was found should have definitely been disclosed. Also, if you guys wanted to know how I actually find cars, which I do find them locally, not only at the auctions, I do have a full video on that, which I'll put a link above. So right now I'm just pulling all the parts out of the car. Basically, when they take the car apart to assess the damage, more than likely from the insurance company, they just toss everything back in there and don't actually put it back together. So that's how you'll normally find crashed vehicles or cars that were inspected. Alright guys, so I was able to take almost all the parts out. Just got to take this piece out. It pretty much had everything that was taken apart in the front here. You can see right there. The headlights, both headlights are actually in perfect condition. Bumper supports, all these little plastic pieces that were taken apart are all in good condition. The wheel well liner, air intake box, no cracks. And then the bumper, the front bumper, I don't see any damage on it. Makes me wonder why the insurance company would report this as a total loss. But it also makes sense as why they kept it a clean title. So let's take a look around the car. I do got the battery charging right now because it was completely dead. There is a strong fuel smell, so I'm gonna have to figure out where that's coming from. But the body overall is in great condition. Interior looks good, just needs to be cleaned up obviously because they threw all those parts in there. Seats actually look like they're in really good condition and should clean up really nice. Got this nice carbon fiber spoiler. Oh, we got some more parts down here, which we'll have to take out. And yeah, so overall in great condition so far. I'm happy. Only thing that I couldn't see in the pictures was that crack on the windshield. It's kind of hard to see on camera too, but there's a crack going right there. So this is going to need to be replaced. So I did pop the front bumper back on, and right here I'm just giving it a quick wash before pulling it in the garage. There's kind of, you know, all types of dirt on the car, bugs and stuff you pretty much don't want in the garage, so it's always a good idea to clean the car up before pulling it in there. Plus it's nicer working on a clean car. Alright, so this vehicle was actually in a fire, so it wasn't disclosed by the insurance company at the auction, and I opened up a claim to see if they'll do anything about it. I doubt it, but it should have definitely been disclosed, but it wasn't. So this is a situation we're in. I had to pull the supercharger off and give you guys a quick look of what I see under here. So
I went ahead and covered these up, so ignore that. But you can see there was a fire that started over here because whoever was working on it left all the bolts loose over here. And I don't know what the fuel injectors look like that are under there. I'm gonna have to pull that all apart. But you can see a bunch of melted plastic in here. So I'm definitely gonna have to go through everything and replace everything that's burnt on there. So this is the secondary air pump hose. You can see that's melted too, so I'm going to replace that, replace all these vacuum lines, fix the fuel injectors, and make sure it's not leaking any more gas, because when you start this vehicle it's actually pouring gas out the left side, so can't really start it. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. Somebody was doing this job, didn't do it correctly, and just put it back together improperly and caused a major fuel leak, which you could actually see the gasoline pulled all down there. And what they did is they started it, it probably hit some kind of electrical spark or heat, depending on how long they had it run for, and it started on fire. Luckily they were able to put it out pretty quick, it looks like. But this is just something we got to deal with this flip vehicle. Shouldn't be too bad. I'm guessing probably about $300 or $400 in additional parts, so we should still be in the green. All right, so at this point we got all the fuel injectors installed. You can see I put the fuel rail back on over here, got everything torqued down how it's supposed to be, because if you remember earlier, these were all loose when I got to them, and that's what was causing the fuel leak. So when I took it off, I changed all the fuel injectors, put this back on properly. I went through all the wiring that had burn marks on it to make sure it didn't go all the way through. At this point, these are just cosmetic. It's just the cover right here, so these were fine. I went through, I did change out this hose right here, got a new one that runs all the way up to here, so that's all brand new. Then we also changed out this hose right here, which is for the secondary air pump. If you remember, it was all melted, so we got a new one on there. And then also another hose, vacuum hose right here, that we went ahead and fabricated to connect right down in here. So that needs to be put on when I'm putting the supercharger back in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it to the side, hook up that hose, then get everything lined up so I can bolt everything back down and test it out. Here we go. So I got that hose hooked up. You can see it's right there. So when I'm putting this on, I'm just gonna have to be careful, because this part needs to connect right here. So I don't want to pinch the hose when I'm installing it. So I had to take it off one more time because this actually got pinched underneath it. So I had to pull it up, and I just want to make sure that I got clearance on everything before seating the supercharger. And we look good. All right, so we got the car in the garage so we could actually do some work on it in here. I do have the batteries disconnected right now just because of the fuel leak, but the fuel leak was actually fixed, so I'm not too concerned about it, and now the smell is gone. But just to be safe, I went ahead and disconnected the battery and left the trunk open in case I need access to it. So supercharger's back on, and I actually drove the car in here without any problem. So now I got this pulled back, the radiator, you can see the fan right there. It's just completely burnt up. So I went ahead and ordered a new one of those. We're gonna go ahead and change that. You can also see some of the pulleys are melted, so those are all gonna need to be replaced and cleaned up. I did also find, because I noticed that this wheel right here was a little bit off, like it was turned to the left when the other wheel was straight. And what I found is this bend right here in this inner tie rod. So the outer one looks fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and order the inner one, get that changed, and then we'll have to realign the wheels to get everything straight. And looking on this side, this is probably where most of the damage is from that fire. So you can see in there's a bunch of melted wires. It's kind of hard to see, but the axle shaft boot actually melted, so the grease is coming out of it as well. And one of my biggest concerns was the power steering on this vehicle isn't working, and it's electronic, and it's not a cheap part. I mean, just to get it used, you're probably looking at over $1,200 just for a used part. And what I found is the wires on it are actually melted. So I may be able to cut the wires out, rewire it, check the fuses, change the fuses, and hopefully it works. So that's not something we'll have to replace. But now that we're in the garage, we're gonna go ahead and do some work, changing out some of these lines, which I already started here with these vacuum lines. This one was completely melted. I went ahead and changed that out. And we're just gonna go through everything else on here. All right, so I got the vehicle jacked up because I went ahead and changed out that inner tie rod end. You can see on this one, I don't even know how it got that bent. My guess is they hit a curb on this side or the other side and caused this to bend, but anyways, it needed to be changed. We went ahead and changed it. I got the wheel lined up as straight as possible, so probably have to do an alignment after, but try to get it as straight as possible before we get that done. Next up, we're gonna change out the radiator fan. You can see I got the new pulleys on the supercharger, new pulleys down there, and then I got all the new belts on, and it's coming together. So we got the fan out. If you remember, the electrical fan was all burnt up, so I ordered a new one. And I just want to give you guys a closer look of the fan, cooling fans that I took out. You can see all the wires, the plastic, the fan blades. Well, that's actually one of them right there. Completely melted. So that's crazy. The fire went from the front of the engine and then down into that wheel well, which we'll get into there. So the new fan will be coming and we'll go ahead and change that out. All right, so we got the vehicle in the garage, turned around. I actually was able to drive it without any problems. There was actually one problem where the radiator was actually dripping coolant, and what I found is somebody actually loosened the drain plug for the radiator. So simple fix, turned it, tightened it, checked for leaks, no leaks, we're good on that. So now we're actually tackling this left front area right here. You can see there's a bunch of burnt up wires right there for the ABS sensor and some other sensors. So that's all being replaced. I went ahead and ordered new wires for that, so I can go ahead and rewire that in. Also the axle shaft, you can see the boots got burnt up, so all the grease leaked out of it. So I went ahead and ordered a new axle as well. We'll get all this cleaned up, and then I got a new fender liner coming, so that'll also be replaced and that'll take care of that. I also do need a tire because the tire looks like it actually got burnt and caused a leak in it. So get a new tire on there and we should be able to put the front back together after that and take it for a test drive, but we'll get there when we get there. All right, so we got all the wiring done on the left front wheel. All the wires up there for the sensors were burnt up. I went ahead and got a new harness and changed that up, so it's all good to go. Right now I got the spare on there. I got to get the new tire mounted on the rim, and then we'll get that changed out. And then now we're gonna do a pressure test on the cooling system. All these lines were changed, so we went ahead and replaced that. I want to make sure there's no leaks in there. I do believe that we do have a leak in the radiator, so I went ahead and ordered another one, but I'm just going to do another pressure test before that to see if there's any leaks anywhere else. So we got the pressure tester hooked up. You can see right there. I started it at 15 psi, and it's slowly dropping, and I did find a leak. Get the light over here. You could actually see it's dripping from the radiator, so we'll go ahead and get that changed out and then re-pressure test everything to make sure we have no leaks. So we're getting the car ready to change out this radiator. First things first, I needed to drain the coolant from the radiator before taking off that bottom hose, just so it doesn't make a big mess over here. And then I'll get the top line disconnected. I already got this one disconnected right here, which goes to the overflow tank. I got one of the transmission lines because this goes into the radiator as well as a cooler. So there's a top one and then a bottom one, which I'll get to after this is drained. So we'll go ahead and put the new radiator on. So we finally got the radiator out. Man, I gotta tell you, taking off these hoses, the lower hose, the upper hose, and this line are really difficult to get off. You pull this pin up and then you just gotta pry it little by little without breaking it because it's plastic, and it does seem to get seized on there. So you just kind of got to work it until it comes loose very carefully. Unless you're changing it, then I guess it doesn't really matter. But anyway, so we got it prepared. I'm just waiting for the new radiator to arrive, but this is a good stopping point for me. So when the new radiator comes, we'll be able to hook everything up, test out the system, and make sure there's no more leaks. All right, new radiator is installed. I think the hardest part about doing that was doing these transmission fluid lines. There's one on the top here, and then there's one on the bottom there, and it's kind of hard to get to the bolts, but we were able to get it. It took me about 20 minutes. So now I'm going to put the condenser back on down there, and we'll get this zipped up, and then we'll be able to test it out. All right, so unfortunately we have another issue that's going to need to be addressed. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about. So it's got this noise when you're turning the steering wheel. Let me give it some power here and let you guys hear this noise. There you go. Now you guys can hear it better. So at first I thought it was the intermediate shaft, which is basically the steering column connected to the rack and pinion. It's basically a rod with joints that move around. So I did lubricate those to see if it would change the noise, but it didn't. So I raised up the whole front end here, and I was able to isolate it to the steering rack itself. There's like bearings in there that go bad, and it's going to cause this binding type metal on metal noise. So unfortunately I needed to source out another rack and pinion, so I was able to find a remanufactured one for about $700. Not very happy about it because it's definitely cutting into profits, but we're still good as far as profits go. Just not going to be as much as I wanted originally, but you know, stuff like this happens. The stuff that cut into our budget is all the burn damage that wasn't disclosed from the auction, which I mentioned earlier. I do have a claim opened up with them, and hopefully they'll reimburse me for some of these parts, and that will help with our profits. So the new rack should be here in about a week and get that changed out, and hopefully that's all it is. So besides that, everything is completely rebuilt. We do have a tire light on, so I'll need to get that reprogrammed. Just miscellaneous stuff. The washer fluid needs to be refilled because when you take apart that stuff, all the fluid comes out. So besides that, I drove the car. It actually drives great. So I'm excited that once we change out this rack and pinion, the car will be good to go and ready for sale. So we'll get back to that when the rack and pinion arrives. All right, so it took about 30 minutes to get the old electric steering rack out. You can see this one, boot's all torn on this one, and it was completely binding up. See, this boot actually came off too. So it's actually a good thing I'm replacing this. It was working, but it was making a weird noise, so I decided to go ahead and change it up. So let me see if I could actually get it to make that noise while it's off the vehicle. Alright. You can kind of hear it. It's louder when it's installed on the vehicle, but I think the bearings inside of it are probably shot, so we're gonna go ahead and get that replaced. So just waiting for the new one to come and we'll get that installed. All right, so we got the replacement steering rack in. That's the old one right there. And we're gonna get this one installed. All right, so let's take this on its first test drive. See, no lights. Oh yeah. Everything feels smooth on the car, no issues, no lights, so I think we're good to go.
So let's get into the breakdown. The car cost with parts came out to $10,218. Car sold for $15,400 and with a total profit of $5,182. So the profit margin was pretty decent, even with all those burnt parts. It would have definitely been a lot more, but this project only took me about 2 weeks. So almost $5,200 in profit is pretty good for a 2-week payday. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to keep up with all the latest flips. Thanks for watching.